I was still breathing heavily from the escape, adrenaline pumping through my veins as the stars outside the cockpit blurred into thin streaks of light. Grohl sat beside me, eyes narrowed, scanning for any sign of the cloaked ship. Our shuttle trembled from the sudden acceleration, and the hum of the engines filled the silence. But my mind was somewhere else, on Earth. We had barely escaped the xylenium trap on Altheris V, but the real danger was just beginning. An even more advanced, weaponized strain of the virus was being prepared for release on Earth, and this time the stakes were incomprehensibly high. I'd seen what it could do on a smaller scale, horrific, adaptive destruction. On a global scale, it would be unstoppable. "How much time do we have?" Grohl's deep voice broke the quiet. I blinked, snapped out of my thoughts. "If the information we intercepted is right, we've got less than 72 hours before the first release," I said, my voice tense. "Earth's got no idea what's coming. They're expecting a medical supply drop, not biological Armageddon." Grohl grunted, tightening his grip on the flight controls. "The enemy ship. It will follow. They won't let us warn your people." I nodded grimly. The alien vessel that had captured us before wasn't just some random encounter. These enemies had resources, intelligence, and precise planning. They knew who I was, and they knew how to neutralize any threat. Then we'll need to get ahead of them. They'll expect us to go straight to Earth. But if we take a detour, they'll hunt us down anyway, Grohl finished. "We are outmatched in technology and firepower, Ethan." He was right, but there was no other choice. Earth was everything. Millions of lives hung in the balance, and if we didn't make it back with the data, there'd be no defense. Suddenly, the shuttle's control panel beeped, the flashing red of a proximity alert cutting through my thoughts. "They found us," Grohl growled, eyes narrowing as he adjusted the ship's course. "Hold on," I muttered, pulling up the holographic display. There it was, the cloaked ship, cutting through space like a predator stalking prey. Despite Grohl's evasive maneuvers, the alien vessel was closing the gap fast. "We can't outrun them," I said, thinking fast. "But we can mislead them." Grohl shot me a quick glance. "You have an idea, human. Trust me." I jammed a sequence of commands into the shuttle system. Grohl gave me a skeptical look, but he trusted me enough to follow my lead. The shuttle lurched as I activated a jump sequence, not to Earth, but to the asteroid belt orbiting the nearby gas giant, Zekra. "An asteroid field?" Grohl grunted as the stars outside blinked into nothingness and were replaced by a sea of tumbling rocks. "Exactly," I said, gritting my teeth. "If we can get inside and use the field's interference, we might just lose them. Or die in the process," he added. I shot him a look. One problem at a time. The shuttle hurtled into the asteroid field, and Grohl took over manual control, his hands gripping the controls with steady precision. We weaved between spinning rocks the size of buildings, each near miss tightening the knot in my gut. Behind us, the cloaked ship continued to pursue, its scanners probing for our location. "They're not letting up," Grohl growled. "Give it a second," I muttered, my hands flying over the console as I ran a diagnostic on the alien ship's scan pattern. The asteroids were interfering with their targeting systems, but not enough. Come on, there!" I isolated the gap in their scanning range. It was small, but it was enough. "Veer left, hard," I shouted. Grohl responded instantly, jerking the shuttle into a sharp turn. The proximity alarm screamed as we passed inches from a massive chunk of rock, but it worked. The alien ship's scan missed us, and for a brief, precious moment, we vanished from their sensors. "Now," I yelled, engaging the shuttle's cloaking device. It wasn't perfect, but combined with the asteroid field's interference, it was our best shot. Grohl brought the shuttle into the shadow of a colossal asteroid, and we sat in silence as the enemy ship passed overhead, still searching, but unable to lock on to us. "They've lost us," I breathed, leaning back in my seat, feeling the weight lift off my chest. "For now," Grohl said, ever the realist. I nodded. "We'll make the jump to Earth once we're clear of the field." But even as I said it, I knew our problems weren't over. We'd bought ourselves some time, but the enemy wasn't just going to give up. Worse, we had no idea who we were dealing with. And Earth was still in danger. "You've fought these kinds before?" Grohl asked, his deep voice cutting through the quiet as he glanced at me from the pilot's seat. "Not exactly," I said, still trying to piece it all together. "But I've seen the results of their work. The Xylenium virus, it's more than just a bioweapon. It's adaptive. It learns, mutates. It's like they've programmed it with an intelligence of its own." Grohl frowned. "You mean it can think?" "Not in the traditional sense, but it can react. It can change its structure to resist treatments, adapt to new environments faster than anything I've ever seen. Whoever created it, they're not just trying to wipe us out. They're testing us." Grohl's brow furrowed. "Testing? For what?" "That's what I need to figure out, and fast." I pulled up the intercepted data we'd recovered back on Alpharis V. It was a garbled mess of alien code, but there were patterns, mathematical sequences buried in the chaos. Whoever these enemies were, they weren't just using brute force. There was a terrifying precision to their methods, like they were playing some kind of larger game. A game humanity had no idea it was part of. "We have less than 48 hours now," I said, glancing at the countdown timer on the console. "If we can't find a way to stop the release on Earth..." Grohl clenched his fists. "Then we fight." I looked at him, nodding slowly. "Yeah, we fight." We stayed hidden in the asteroid field for several hours, waiting until the alien ship was far enough away. Once I was confident they'd moved on, I initiated the jump to Earth. It was a risk, but we didn't have a choice. We were running out of time. As the stars stretched and twisted into the familiar sight of a warp tunnel, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were walking into a trap. The enemy had been one step ahead of us this entire time. Whoever they were, they wanted us to make it to Earth. They wanted us to see what was coming. But I wasn't about to let them win. Not without a fight. The shuttle systems beeped as we dropped out of warp, Earth appearing before us in the distance, a blue-green jewel against the black of space. For a moment, the sight calmed me, but it didn't last. An alert flashed on the console. "Incoming transmission." "This is Earth Defense Command," a voice crackled through the comms. "You're entering restricted space. Identify yourselves." I leaned forward, tapping the controls. "This is Dr. Ethan Langford, Special Operations. Authorization code Alpha 9 Zeta. We have critical intel regarding an imminent biological attack on Earth. We need to speak with the High Command immediately." There was a long pause. Too long. Finally, the voice responded. "Your authorization code checks out, Dr. Langford. Stand by for further instructions." I exchanged a glance with Grohl. Something felt off. "We don't have time for further instructions," I muttered. "We need to get planetside now." Before I could act, the shuttle systems suddenly went dead. Lights, power, everything. "What the?" I started. The shuttle lurched as it was caught in a tractor beam, pulling us toward the surface. "They're not letting us in willingly," Grohl growled. My stomach churned. Something was very wrong. The shuttle shuddered violently as the tractor beam latched onto us, dragging us helplessly toward the surface. Every light and console on the ship flickered dead, and the familiar hum of the engines faded to nothing. Grohl shot me a dark look, his hands twitching near the flight controls out of sheer habit. "This is no welcome, Doctor," he growled. I didn't respond. The unsettling silence from Earth Defense Command gnawed at my mind. Protocols were one thing, but we had a ticking clock. My gut told me this was more than bureaucracy dragging its feet. As the shuttle was pulled closer to the surface, a massive Earth defense platform came into view. It was a fortress in the sky, its dark metal hull bristling with gun turrets and shield generators. This wasn't just a checkpoint, it was a stronghold. They were treating us like a threat. "They should have cleared us by now," I muttered. I tapped the emergency comms, trying again. "Earth Command, this is Dr. Langford. We are on a critical mission to prevent..." Suddenly, the shuttle jerked again as we passed through a massive energy field, and everything went black. When I woke, my vision was hazy, the distinct smell of sterilized air filling my nostrils. My body was sluggish, as though I'd been drugged. I blinked, shaking the fog from my mind as I tried to sit up. I was in some kind of holding cell. The sterile white walls and harsh overhead lights made it feel like a medical facility, but the lack of visible windows or doors told me otherwise. A faint hum filled the room, likely surveillance equipment, monitoring every move I made. Grohl was nowhere to be seen. I stumbled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. Something had gone terribly wrong. Earth Defense Command wouldn't just imprison us. Not if they knew what was coming. Not unless... The realization hit me hard. They already know. Suddenly, the door slid open, and two heavily armed guards in black combat suits entered, their faces obscured by helmets. Behind them, a man in a pristine Earth Defense uniform stepped forward, his expression cold and clinical. His sharp eyes studied me with unsettling precision, like I was the subject of an experiment. "Dr. Langford," he said, his voice smooth but devoid of warmth. "You're awake." "Where's Grohl?" I demanded, ignoring the dizziness that lingered. "And what the hell is going on? You've got no idea what's coming." "Oh, we know exactly what's coming, Doctor," the man interrupted, stepping closer. "And we've been preparing for it for quite some time." I narrowed my eyes. "Preparing? For what?" "The Xylenium strain is hours away from being released." "Yes," he said with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "And you're here to deliver the final piece of the puzzle." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" The man's gaze hardened. "You've been gathering data on the Xylenium virus for months. Your infiltration of Altharis V wasn't an accident. We allowed you to find that information because we needed you to bring it here." I took a step back, feeling the walls close in. You're working with them?" I could barely get the words out, my mind reeling. "Not with them," the man said, his tone calm and calculated. "We're using them. The Xylenium virus is a tool, Doctor, a tool to weed out the weak and elevate the strong. You've seen what it can do, how it adapts, how it evolves. Imagine a world where only the strongest of our species survive. A new era for humanity." "You're insane," I snapped. "That virus will wipe out billions. There's no controlling it. It's a death sentence for everyone." The man's smile widened. "Not everyone, Doctor. Those who are worthy will survive. And thanks to your data, we now have the means to ensure that." It hit me like a sledgehammer. The Earth Defense Command hadn't just been complicit in the enemy's plan, they were orchestrating it. The virus wasn't just a weapon, it was part of a twisted experiment to reshape humanity. I clenched my fists, rage bubbling beneath the surface. "You're playing with forces you don't understand." "On the contrary," the man said, his eyes gleaming with a sick satisfaction. "We understand perfectly." Before I could respond, a familiar voice echoed from the hallway. "Langford." I turned to see Grohl being led in by another set of guards. His expression was a mix of anger and confusion, but he was unharmed. As soon as he saw me, his gaze sharpened. "What is this, Ethan? Why are we prisoners?" I didn't have time to explain. "Grohl, they're planning to use the virus on Earth. They're working with..." "Enough," the man cut in, gesturing to the guards. "Take him to the facility. We need to begin the next phase immediately." Before I could protest, I felt a sharp sting in my neck. I reached up, only to find a tranquilizer dart lodged in my skin. The world started to blur again, my muscles turning to lead as I collapsed to the ground. The last thing I saw was Grohl struggling against the guards as they dragged me away. When I woke again, I was strapped to a medical table, bright lights shining overhead. My vision was clearer this time, but the situation was far worse. I could hear the beeping of medical equipment and the quiet murmur of voices in the room. I forced my head to the side and saw figures in lab coats moving around me, adjusting various instruments. They were preparing for something big. One of the scientists noticed I was awake and approached the table, his face partially obscured by a mask. "Ah, Dr. Langford," he said, his voice muffled but audible. "Good to see you conscious." Where am I?" I slurred, struggling against the restraints. "You're in the Genesis facility," the scientist said with a disturbing calmness. "We're going to be using your research to finalize the xylenium's adaptation process. Your data was instrumental in developing the final strain." "Final strain?" I managed, my heart pounding in my chest. "Yes," he nodded. "The ultimate version of the virus, one that will ensure only the strongest survive. You should be proud. Your work will shape the future of humanity." I struggled harder, but the restraints were too tight. You're killing billions." The scientist tilted his head, as if confused by my resistance. "Not killing, improving. Evolution demands sacrifice, Dr. Langford. We're merely facilitating the process." My mind raced, panic clawing at me. I had to get out of here. I had to stop them. But I was helpless, strapped to a table in the middle of their twisted laboratory. Then I heard a loud crash from the hallway. The scientists froze, glancing at each other in confusion. Another crash, followed by shouting. The door to the lab burst open, and Grohl stormed in, fists flying as he took down the guards. "Langford," he roared, his eyes blazing with fury. "Grohl," I shouted, relief flooding through me. "Get me out of here." Without hesitation, Grohl ripped the restraints from the table, freeing me. I stumbled to my feet, my head spinning, but there was no time to waste. Alarms blared through the facility as more guards poured in. "Move!" Grohl shouted, grabbing a weapon from one of the fallen guards. I followed him, my legs weak, but adrenaline surging through my veins. We charged through the corridors, dodging gunfire and weaving between security teams. My mind was racing, but one thing was clear: we couldn't let them unleash the virus. As we ran, I saw the control room up ahead, guarded by a squad of soldiers. It was our only shot. If we could get to the main terminal, we could shut down the facility and stop the release. "Cover me," I shouted to Grohl, who nodded and opened fire. With Grohl providing cover, I sprinted toward the control room, dodging bullets and debris. I reached the terminal, my fingers flying over the keys. The countdown for the virus release was already active, less than 5 minutes left. Sweat dripped down my face as I worked to override the system. The soldiers were closing in, and Grohl was running out of ammunition. Come on," I muttered, my hands shaking. The terminal beeped as the override sequence began, but it wasn't fast enough. We were running out of time. I focused on the terminal, my mind racing as I input command after command. The timer continued to count down, its relentless ticking a constant reminder of the impending doom. I could hear Grohl behind me, firing at the soldiers, each shot ringing out like a death knell. "Just a few more seconds," I shouted over the chaos, my heart pounding in my chest. The adrenaline coursed through me, mingling with the desperation of the moment. The screen flickered, a progress bar slowly advancing. I glanced back at Grohl, his expression a mix of determination and worry. "We need to hold them off, Ethan. They're coming fast." "I know," I snapped, my fingers flying over the keys as I navigated through layers of security. The guards were relentless, advancing steadily. With each passing second, I could feel the tension building, the air thick with the smell of gunpowder and fear. A surge of panic hit me as I realized the progress bar was barely halfway complete. "Hang on," I called out, my voice strained. I needed to move faster, to push the system beyond its limits. Suddenly, the terminal beeped, and a new window opened. "Authorization required," it displayed in stark red letters. My stomach dropped. "What do you need?" Grohl yelled, reloading his weapon as another wave of soldiers approached. "We don't have time." "I need a security clearance," I shouted, scrambling for any possible way to bypass the security protocols. "They must have a backup keycard somewhere." Grohl cursed under his breath. "I'll check the guards' bodies." He darted to the nearest fallen soldier, rifling through pockets. The countdown continued, a constant reminder that time was slipping away. Just as I thought we were out of option, Grohl shouted, "I found it. Cover me." He grabbed the keycard and dashed back to the terminal. I held my breath as he slid it across the reader, praying it would be enough. The terminal whirred to life, and the progress bar shot forward, the countdown reducing to under a minute. "Yes," I shouted, relief flooding through me. But our victory was short-lived. The door burst open, and a squad of soldiers stormed in, weapons drawn. Grohl swung his gun, firing off a few shots, but the odds were against us. "We're outnumbered," he shouted, his voice filled with urgency. I couldn't let this happen, not now, not when we were so close. The terminal chimed, and the screen flashed. Override complete. System shutdown initiated. But the soldiers were closing in, taking aim at Grohl. My heart raced as I realized I had one last chance to save us. "Get down," I shouted, lunging forward. Grohl ducked just as I hit the emergency release button on the terminal. An alarm blared, the lights flickering as the system went into lockdown mode. A wave of energy surged through the facility, sending guards flying backward as the shutdown sequence triggered an electrical overload. The soldiers stumbled, confusion on their faces as they tried to regain control. "Now," I yelled, grabbing Grohl's arm and dragging him toward the exit. The room was in chaos, alarms blaring and lights flashing. We rushed through the door, weaving through the facility as it began to shake. The sounds of chaos echoed behind us, and I felt the heat of the energy pulse from the reactor room. "We need to get out," Grohl shouted, urgency lacing his words. We sprinted down the hall, the walls vibrating as the facility reacted to the emergency protocols. Doors slammed shut behind us, sealing off sections of the facility as the system fought to contain the chaos. Just ahead, a service door loomed, marked with the emergency exit symbol. "Here," I pointed, and we burst through the door, finding ourselves in a narrow corridor filled with emergency lights. "Which way?" Grohl asked, glancing back nervously. "Follow me," I shouted, leading the way as we navigated through the maze of corridors, my mind racing to recall the layout I had memorized from my infiltration. The alarms continued to wail, and I could hear shouting behind us. The guards were regrouping. "Almost there," I urged, pushing forward. We turned a corner and found ourselves facing a large cargo bay door. It was our only way out. "Help me with this," I said, rushing to the control panel. I pressed a series of buttons, praying it would respond. The screen flickered, showing a countdown timer for the door to open. I felt a surge of panic as I saw only seconds left. Come on," I muttered under my breath, slamming my palm against the panel in frustration. Just as the timer hit 0, the door hissed open, revealing the outside world. A rush of cold air greeted us, and I took a deep breath, feeling alive for the first time since we had been captured. "Let's go," Grohl shouted, and we sprinted out into the open. The facility was surrounded by a high wall, but we could see the landscape stretching beyond, a sprawling expanse of wilderness interspersed with military installations. "Where do we go now?" Grohl asked, glancing around. "There's a transport shuttle nearby," I said, scanning the area for any signs of the vehicle. "We can take it and get out of here." Just then, gunfire erupted behind us. "We need to move, now," Grohl urged, dragging me toward the edge of the wall. As we ran, I could hear the shouts of soldiers pursuing us. They wouldn't let us escape easily. "We can't let them catch us," I yelled, adrenaline surging as we darted toward the edge of the facility. We skidded around a corner and spotted the transport shuttle, a small, armed vessel that looked like it had seen better days. "Over there," I pointed, and we sprinted toward it, our breaths coming in desperate gasps. As we reached the shuttle, Grohl leaped inside and started firing at the approaching guards. "Get in," he shouted, and I climbed aboard just as bullets whizzed by. I rushed to the controls, my fingers flying over the buttons. "Go, go, go," Grohl yelled, still firing out the side hatch. The engines roared to life, and the shuttle shuddered as it lifted off the ground. I felt a wave of relief wash over me as we ascended into the air, leaving the chaos of the facility behind. But as we soared higher, I glanced back at the facility, the realization dawning on me. "This isn't over," I muttered, my heart heavy. Grohl lowered his weapon, his expression grim. "What do you mean?" "They'll come after us," I replied, my mind racing. "They won't stop until they retrieve the data we stole, and they won't stop the release of the virus." "We have to warn Earth," Grohl said, determination etched on his face. "We can't let them use the virus." I nodded, the weight of our mission crashing down on me. "We need to find a way to communicate with Earth Defense Command. We need to expose their plans and stop this madness before it's too late." Grohl nodded, his jaw set in determination. "Then let's get to work. We'll figure out a way to turn this around." As we flew away from the facility, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We had survived against all odds, but the real battle was just beginning. We were up against a system that had betrayed its own people, and it was our responsibility to fight back. I knew the journey ahead would be fraught with danger, but with Grohl by my side, I felt a flicker of hope. We were humanity's last line of defense against a threat that could destroy us all. And we wouldn't back down without a fight. The stars twinkled outside the shuttle's viewport, an endless sea of distant worlds. Each flicker reminded me of the countless lives that depended on our success. As I navigated the controls, my mind raced with the implications of what we had uncovered. The virus, their ultimate weapon, was a game changer, a means to assert dominance over not just our planet, but possibly the entire galaxy. Grohl leaned back in his seat, his expression tense but resolute. "Do you have any idea where we can find a secure channel to reach Earth Defense Command?" I shook my head, focusing on the ship's navigation system. "There are relay stations scattered across the outer rim, but we have to avoid detection. They'll be monitoring all channels for unauthorized communications, especially after the incident at the facility." Grohl nodded, his eyes scanning the radar. "What about that mining colony we passed a few light years back? They might have an old relay station we can use, something off their radar." "Good thinking," I replied, my fingers moving over the interface. "Set a course for the mining colony. We'll have to lay low until we can contact command." As I entered the coordinates, a low rumble echoed through the shuttle. I glanced at the control panel, my heart sinking. The engines sputtered, their hum faltering. "Not now," I whispered, panic creeping in. "What's wrong?" Grohl asked, leaning forward, his gaze intense. "The engines are overheating," I said, frantically checking the readouts. "We need to cool them down, or we'll be dead in the water." "Where's the nearest coolant vent?" he asked, already unbuckling his harness. "Underneath the main console," I replied, my voice shaky. "You'll need to pull the access panel off." Grohl wasted no time. He dove under the console, his hands working quickly. The shuttle shook, and I gripped the controls tighter, trying to keep us steady. "I can see the vent," Grohl shouted, his voice muffled. "But it's clogged. I'll need a tool." "Use the emergency repair kit," I replied, searching the compartments for the kit. "It should be under the left seat." I handed him the tool just as a warning light began to blink. "Hurry, we don't have much time." Grohl worked feverishly, sweat beading on his forehead as the temperature gauge climbed higher. I could feel the tension in the air, the looming threat of catastrophe pressing down on us. Finally, with a triumphant shout, Grohl pulled a chunk of debris from the vent, and a rush of cold air blasted through the console. "Got it, that should do it." The engines sputtered once more, then roared back to life, their hum stabilizing. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. "Nice work," I said, my pulse slowing as we regained control. "Thanks," Grohl replied, wiping his brow. "Now let's get to that colony before they catch our trail." As we set the shuttle back on course, I couldn't shake the feeling of urgency. The clock was ticking, and the longer we stayed out here, the greater the risk of being caught. The mining colony came into view, a series of dome structures dotting the rugged landscape of a barren planet. Smoke curled from vents, and the low hum of machinery filled the air. "There it is," I pointed, my heart racing as we descended toward the landing platform. "We'll have to act fast. No telling who's watching." Grohl nodded, his jaw set with determination. "Let's find that relay station and make contact." We landed the shuttle smoothly, the engines winding down as we stepped out into the dusty atmosphere. The colony was bustling, workers moving about their tasks, oblivious to the storm brewing on the horizon. "Stick close," I whispered to Grohl as we made our way through the labyrinth of domes and machinery. We navigated through narrow alleys and past towering cargo containers, keeping our heads low. The colony was a hive of activity, but we couldn't afford to draw attention to ourselves. As we approached a smaller dome marked with faded letters reading communications, a sense of urgency washed over me. We had to reach command before it was too late. Inside, the room was dimly lit, filled with outdated equipment and flickering screens. A sense of nostalgia washed over me as I recognized the vintage technology. This was the kind of setup I'd trained on as a medical officer, long before advanced systems took over. "Let's see if we can find a secure channel," I said, moving to the main console. Grohl kept watch, glancing nervously at the door. "Hurry, we don't have much time." I connected the terminal, praying it still had power. The screen flickered to life, and I began typing in the access codes, sweat beading on my forehead. Come on," I muttered as the system booted up. Suddenly, the screen flashed a warning. "Unauthorized access attempt detected." "Shit," I cursed, heart racing. "Is it locked?" Grohl asked, his eyes darting toward the door. "I can try to override it, but we might not have time," I replied, my fingers flying over the keys. "Do it," Grohl urged, raising his weapon as footsteps echoed outside. I focused, pushing past the security protocols. The countdown was ticking down, and every second felt like an eternity. Finally, I found a back door into the system, my heart racing with adrenaline. "Got it," I shouted, relief flooding through me as the screen showed a secure line to command. "Connecting now." The screen flickered, static buzzing before a familiar face appeared, a young officer with short hair and a serious expression. "Dr. Talon, what's your status?" he asked, urgency lacing his voice. "We've uncovered a deadly virus," I began, my words tumbling out in a rush. "They plan to use it as a weapon against Earth, and we need to stop them." The officer's expression turned grave. "How do you know this?" "I was part of the team that was taken captive," I explained, glancing nervously at Grohl, who kept watch at the door. "We managed to steal critical data, but time is running out. They will come for us." "I'll alert command," the officer said, his fingers flying over the console. "We need to mobilize a response team immediately." "Thank you," I exclaimed, a wave of relief washing over me. But just as the officer was about to relay our message, the door slammed open, and a group of armed guards stormed in, weapons drawn. "Hands up! You're surrounded," one of them shouted, their voices echoing in the small room. Panic surged through me as I turned to Grohl. "We're outnumbered." "Get behind me," he shouted, taking a defensive stance. I ducked behind the console, my heart pounding in my chest as the guards advanced. The officer on the screen shouted for backup, but I could see it was too late. "Don't move," one of the guards barked, leveling his weapon at Grohl. Grohl gritted his teeth, his expression unwavering. "We're not going down without a fight." A tense silence filled the room, the air crackling with danger. Just as I thought all was lost, the officer's voice broke through the tension. "Stand down," he shouted through the comm link, his expression intense. "You don't know who you're dealing with." The guards hesitated, glancing at one another, confusion flickering in their eyes. "We're working for the command," I shouted, my voice rising above the chaos. "You're making a mistake." The lead guard's eyes narrowed. "You're traitors. Surrender now." "Wait!" the officer shouted, cutting through the tension. They have vital information. We need to hear them out. In that split second, the dynamic shifted. The guards hesitated, uncertainty crossing their faces. Information, one of them asked, lowering his weapon slightly. Yes, I shouted, seizing the opportunity. The virus, it's a weapon. If you take us in, you'll be handing over the fate of Earth. The lead guard exchanged glances with his comrades. What do you mean? We have proof, Grohl said, his voice steady. If you let us finish our report to command, you'll understand the gravity of the situation. The guards looked to their leader, who seemed torn. Make a choice, I urged, my heart racing. This isn't just about us. It's about the survival of your planet too. The officer nodded, his eyes fierce. I can confirm their claims. We need to act quickly. The lead guard took a deep breath, lowering his weapon fully. All right, talk, but make it quick. Grohl and I exchanged a glance, a spark of hope igniting within me. Let's get to work, I said, my voice firm. The guards, momentarily disarmed by the sudden shift in our situation, leaned in, intrigued yet skeptical. Are you telling me, the lead guard said, his brow furrowed, that there's a virus out there that can wipe us out, and you just happened to stumble upon it? Not just a virus, I corrected, choosing my words carefully. It's a weapon, a biological one designed specifically to incapacitate or kill. If unleashed, it could decimate the entire population of Earth in mere weeks. The aliens want to keep us under their control, and this is their ace in the hole. The officer on the screen nodded in agreement. They've been experimenting with this strain for years, trying to find the perfect combination to maximize its lethality while ensuring immunity in themselves. We've already lost contact with several research stations. We suspect they've been compromised. The lead guard's skepticism morphed into concern as he glanced back at his men. And how do we know you're not just feeding us a line to get out of here? Because, Grohl interjected, his voice steady, if we don't get this information to command, you won't just be letting us go. You'll be signing your own death warrant. The aliens are coming, and they won't hesitate to use this weapon on you. I could see the gears turning in the lead guard's mind. His uncertainty was evident, but I could also see a flicker of realization. So what's the plan? He finally asked, lowering his weapon slightly. I took a breath, my heart racing. We need to connect with command and warn them. If we can get this information out, they can mount a defense, mobilize troops, and prepare for what's coming. Even if we believe you, the lead guard said, his skepticism re-emerging, how do we get out of here without attracting attention? If the aliens are watching, they'll know we're trying to alert command. The officer on the screen chimed in. We can provide you with a secure channel for communication. It won't be easy, but it's better than the alternative. Then we'll need to move fast, I said, urgency coloring my tone. If they're on to us, every second counts. The lead guard nodded, visibly weighing the risks. All right, let's get to that secure channel. But if you try anything... I understand, I interrupted, my hands raised. We're on the same side. We're all in danger here. As we moved, I felt a strange mix of hope and apprehension. The threat loomed larger than ever, and I knew that time was slipping away. The dim lights of the communications dome flickered as we approached the terminal, and I quickly began to access the system. Stay alert, Grohl murmured, his eyes scanning the entrance. The terminal buzzed to life, and I typed in the access codes, praying that it would still function after all these years. The screen flickered before displaying a familiar interface, and my heart raced with relief. Okay, we're in, I said, my fingers moving deftly over the keyboard. Connecting to command now. But as I initiated the connection, the screen blinked, and an error message flashed. Unauthorized access detected. Connection terminated. No, I groaned, pounding the console in frustration. Not now. Can you override it? Grohl asked, his eyes wide. I'll try, but I need time, I replied, my fingers flying over the keys. The guards exchanged glances, their unease returning. Hurry up, the lead guard barked, the tension rising. Just give me a moment, I snapped back, focusing on bypassing the security protocols. The seconds felt like an eternity as I fought against the system's defenses. The screen flickered again, and I could feel the panic rising within me. Suddenly, I spotted a glimmer of hope, a backdoor into the system that might give me the access I needed. I hesitated only a moment before diving in, my heart pounding as I worked to unlock the secure line. Come on, I muttered under my breath, sweat beading on my forehead. Finally, the screen flashed green. Connection established. Yes, I shouted, relief flooding through me. The officer's face reappeared on the screen, his expression grave. What's happening? We've been trying to reach you. There's no time, I said, urgency lacing my voice. We've discovered the aliens' plan to unleash a virus. We need to mobilize forces immediately. Send me the data, he replied, his tone shifting to one of determination. We'll rally our troops and prepare a defense. How much time do we have? Less than a week, I answered, anxiety knotting in my stomach. They've been working on this for years. If they unleash it, we won't stand a chance. Understood. I'm sending this to the High Command now. Stay on the line while we prepare. The officer's voice was steady, filled with resolve. As I relayed the information, Grohl and the guards kept watch, their eyes darting toward the door. The atmosphere was charged with urgency, each passing moment echoing with the weight of impending doom. Done, I exclaimed as I finished transmitting the data. They have everything. Good, the officer said, his gaze unwavering. Now we need to evacuate you from the colony before the aliens catch wind of this. I don't know if we can, I replied, anxiety creeping back in. The aliens might already be onto us. The officer's expression hardened. We can't afford to think like that. We have to believe we can make it out. I'll send you coordinates for a safe extraction point. Stay low and move quickly. Right, I said, adrenaline surging through me. We'll head out now. Be careful, he warned, the connection flickering. We'll do our best to keep you safe. Stay in contact. With a final nod, the screen went dark, and I turned to Grohl and the guards. Okay, we have our orders, I said, my heart racing. We need to get to the extraction point. The lead guard nodded, a newfound determination in his eyes. Let's move. Stay quiet and keep your heads down. As we left the communications dome, I couldn't shake the feeling that danger lurked around every corner. The colony was buzzing with activity, but we were now acutely aware of the stakes. Navigating through the alleys and past the bustling workers, we moved in silence, my heart pounding with each step. I could feel the weight of the mission pressing down on us, the lives of countless innocents resting on our shoulders. Where to? Grohl whispered, glancing back at me. Just ahead, I replied, my eyes scanning for any sign of danger. We should be close to the extraction point. The atmosphere was tense, and every sound seemed amplified, the clanging of metal, the whirring of machinery, and the distant voices of workers. I felt a knot of fear twisting in my stomach, a sense of foreboding creeping in. As we turned a corner, I spotted a small transport vehicle parked outside a nondescript building. There, I pointed, relief washing over me. That's our way out. The guards moved forward cautiously, weapons drawn, as Grohl and I followed closely behind. We approached the transport, and I could see it was an older model, perfect for blending in and evading detection. Let's get inside, Grohl urged, glancing around nervously. The lead guard nodded, gesturing for us to enter first. You two go ahead. We'll cover you. We climbed into the transport, the interior dimly lit and cramped. Grohl settled into the driver's seat while I moved to the passenger side, scanning the controls. Do you know how to operate this? He asked, his eyes wide with urgency. Just give me a moment, I replied, my fingers dancing over the controls. The engine roared to life, vibrating beneath us. I glanced back at the guards, who were keeping a watchful eye on the surroundings. Ready? I asked, adrenaline coursing through my veins. Grohl nodded, determination etched on his face. "Let's get out of here." As I shifted into gear, the transport lurched forward, and we sped away from the building, heart racing with the thrill of escape. But as we navigated the winding roads of the colony, the sense of danger grew heavier. I could feel the eyes of the universe upon us, the threat looming in the darkness. Suddenly, a warning siren blared in the distance. My heart dropped. "They've spotted us." Grohl slammed his foot on the accelerator, and the transport surged forward. "Hang on." We raced through the streets, the transport jostling as we dodged obstacles and veered around corners. The chaos of the colony swirled around us, but all I could focus on was the need to escape. "Get us to the extraction point," Grohl shouted, urgency lacing his voice. "I'm trying," I yelled back, my heart pounding in sync with the speeding vehicle. Ahead, I spotted a fork in the road. "Which way?" I called out, my mind racing. "Right," Grohl shouted, and I veered the transport in that direction, narrowly avoiding a collision with a passing cargo loader. As we barreled down the right path, the sirens grew louder, echoing through the air. The ground shook beneath us, and I felt a surge of panic. "Faster," Grohl urged, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. I pressed down on the accelerator, the transport speeding up as we careened through the maze of buildings. The lights of the colony blurred by, an indistinguishable mass of color and noise. "Keep an eye out for anything," Grohl shouted, his eyes scanning the area. "We need to lose them." I caught a glimpse of movement in my peripheral vision, a group of aliens, clad in dark armor, darting into view. My heart sank. "They're right behind us." "Hold on," Grohl shouted as he swerved to avoid a barricade. The transport jolted violently, and I braced myself against the dashboard. "We can't outrun them," I yelled. Suddenly, the ship shuddered as a shot rang out, hitting the rear of the transport. Sparks flew as the impact jolted us forward. "Get down," Grohl shouted, ducking as another shot whizzed past. I threw myself to the side, fear clawing at my insides. "We need to find cover." Grohl's hands tightened on the wheel, and he maneuvered the transport to the side of a building, skidding to a stop. "Now what?" he asked, panic lacing his voice. "Find a way to fight back," I shouted, scrambling for the weapon strapped to my leg. The guards leaped into action, taking up positions around the transport, weapons drawn and ready. "We need to hold them off," the lead guard barked, glancing back at us. Grohl and I exchanged glances, our hearts racing with adrenaline. "What do we do?" I asked, scanning for a way out. "Cover fire," Grohl shouted as the guards began to return fire at the approaching aliens. I pulled out my weapon, the weight of it familiar in my hands. "Let's give them hell," I said, determination surging within me. We stepped out of the transport, crouching behind the vehicle for cover. The sounds of gunfire echoed through the air as the guards unleashed a barrage of fire. The aliens returned fire, lighting up the dim alleyway. I steadied my aim, taking deep breaths as I prepared to fire. "This is it," I shouted, adrenaline pumping through my veins. "We fight for our survival." Grohl nodded, his expression fierce. "For humanity." As we fired back, the chaos of the battle unfolded around us, a cacophony of sound and light. The aliens moved swiftly, their dark armor gleaming ominously in the shadows. "Watch out," one of the guards yelled, narrowly avoiding an incoming blast. The air crackled with tension as we fought back, a desperate struggle for survival against an overwhelming force. The odds were against us, but we were fueled by the urgency of our mission, the need to save humanity from impending doom. As the battle raged on, I felt a surge of determination, a fire ignited within me. We were humanity's last hope, and we would fight with everything we had. "Keep firing," I shouted, my voice carrying over the chaos. "We won't back down." Grohl stood firm beside me, his eyes ablaze with resolve. "We're not just fighting for ourselves, we're fighting for everyone back home." With renewed strength, we pushed forward, our weapons blazing as we fought against the relentless onslaught. The adrenaline coursed through me, fueling my every movement as we fought to hold our ground. The tide of the battle surged and ebbed, each moment a desperate struggle for survival. But even as the odds stacked against us, we refused to yield. "Stay together," the lead guard shouted, rallying us as we pressed forward, our spirits unwavering in the face of danger. With each pulse of gunfire, we fought for our lives, a testament to the resilience of humanity in the face of insurmountable odds. The aliens might have the technology and the firepower, but we had something stronger, our will to survive. The echoes of the battle rang in my ears as I fought alongside my comrades, our unity a beacon of hope against the darkness. Together, we were more than just individuals. We were humanity, refusing to be extinguished. As the chaos swirled around us, I felt a surge of determination, a fire ignited within me. We would not go quietly into the night. We would fight back, tooth and nail, for the future of our species. And as the aliens advanced, I steeled myself for what was to come. The battle was far from over, and we would fight to the last breath to protect our home. The streets echoed with gunfire, and our resolve solidified. This was humanity's moment to rise. The battle raged on, and we continued to fight with every ounce of strength we had. The stakes had never been higher, and the fate of our world rested in our hands. But even amidst the chaos, I could feel the sense of unity and purpose driving us forward. As we pushed back against the aliens, I felt a sense of clarity wash over me. We were not just fighting for our survival, we were fighting for the very essence of what it meant to be human. The resilience, the creativity, the indomitable spirit that had defined our species throughout history would guide us through this dark hour. "Grow," I shouted over the din of battle. "We need to flank them. Use the buildings for cover." He nodded, determination etched on his face. "Right, follow my lead." With a nod of understanding, we darted from our cover, zigzagging through the debris-strewn street, seeking out a vantage point to gain the upper hand. The aliens were relentless, their advanced technology giving them a distinct advantage. But we had something they couldn't take from us, our resourcefulness. We reached the edge of a crumbling building, the walls pockmarked with the scars of previous battles. "We'll use this as our base," I said, breathless but resolute. "From here, we can strike at their flanks." The guards fell in line behind us, their expressions a mixture of fear and fierce determination. We had become a cohesive unit, our shared resolve driving us onward. "On my mark," I shouted, raising my weapon. 3, 2, 1, now. We opened fire, a synchronized wave of resistance crashing against the aliens. The impact was immediate, sending some of them scrambling for cover as we advanced. "Keep pushing," Grohl yelled, his voice cutting through the chaos. "We have to gain ground." With every pull of the trigger, I felt the weight of our mission settle deeper within me. We were fighting not just for our lives, but for the very future of humanity. "More are coming," one of the guards shouted, his voice tinged with urgency. "Fall back, regroup," the lead guard ordered, his tone commanding. We took cover, retreating back to our makeshift base as the aliens pressed forward, their firepower relentless. I could feel the tension in the air, the heaviness of impending defeat creeping in. But we would not yield. We would not surrender. I glanced at Grohl, determination blazing in his eyes. "We need a plan. We can't hold them off forever." He nodded, his brow furrowing in thought. "What if we create a diversion? Something to draw their attention away while we slip out?" "That could work," I said, adrenaline surging through me. "But we'll need to time it perfectly." The lead guard turned to us, his expression serious. "What do you have in mind?" I gestured to a stack of crates nearby, piled haphazardly against the wall. "If we set those on fire, it could create a smoke screen. We can use it to make our escape while they're distracted." Grohl's eyes lit up with inspiration. "And if we place explosives nearby, we can take out a chunk of their forces while we're at it." "Exactly," I exclaimed, feeling a sense of urgency wash over me. "Let's do it." The guards moved into action, gathering the necessary materials as Grohl and I prepared the explosives. The atmosphere was charged with determination, and I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins. "Are you ready?" I asked, my voice steady. "Always," Grohl replied, a fierce glint in his eyes. As we placed the explosives and set the crates ablaze, the flames flickered to life, casting an eerie glow in the darkness. Smoke began to billow upward, curling into the night sky as we took our positions. "On my signal," I whispered, my heart racing. 3, 2, 1. We detonated the explosives, the blast echoing through the streets and sending debris flying. The shockwave reverberated, disorienting the aliens as they scrambled for cover. "Now, move!" Grohl shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. We took off, sprinting through the thick smoke that enveloped us, the sound of our pursuers echoing in the distance. As we dashed through the haze, I felt the adrenaline surge within me, propelling me forward. We were making a break for it, fighting against the odds, and nothing could stand in our way. "Keep going," I shouted, urging everyone onward. But just as we thought we were gaining ground, I heard the unmistakable sound of alien technology powering up behind us. My heart sank. "They're right behind us," I yelled, panic rising in my chest. "Don't stop," Grohl urged, his breath ragged as we navigated through the thickening smoke. We reached a narrow alley, a potential refuge amidst the chaos. I glanced back, catching sight of the aliens pushing through the smoke, their advanced weapons glowing ominously. "We can't hold them off," I shouted, desperation creeping into my voice. "Then we'll have to find a way to cut them off," Grohl replied, his expression fierce. We darted down the alley, hearts pounding, our instincts guiding us through the darkness. The world outside was a blur of chaos and sound, but our focus remained clear: survive. Suddenly, we stumbled upon a hidden pathway, the entrance obscured by debris. "This way," I yelled, pointing toward the opening. We ducked inside, squeezing through the narrow passageway as the chaos faded behind us. I could hear the muffled sounds of the battle echoing in the distance, but we were safe for now. "We need to keep moving," Grohl said, scanning our surroundings. "We can't stay here for long." I nodded, my heart racing as we pressed onward. The passage twisted and turned, leading us deeper into the heart of the colony. "Do you know where this leads?" Grohl asked, glancing back at me. "Not exactly," I admitted, "but we'll find a way out. We have to." As we navigated the labyrinthine passage, a flicker of hope ignited within me. Perhaps we could find a way to escape, a path that would lead us back to safety. But just as I thought we were making progress, I heard a rumble echoing through the tunnels, a sound that sent chills down my spine. "What was that?" I whispered, my heart racing. Grohl paused, his expression tense. "I don't know, but we need to move. Now." We hurried down the passage, urgency propelling us forward. The air felt thick with tension, and I could hear the distant sounds of the battle raging outside. Suddenly, the ground shook violently beneath us, and I stumbled, barely catching myself against the wall. "What's happening?" I gasped, panic rising within me. "It's an explosion," Grohl shouted, urgency lacing his voice. "We need to get out of here." We sprinted through the tunnels, adrenaline coursing through our veins. I could feel the walls closing in around us, the darkness pressing against us like a suffocating shroud. As we rounded a corner, we were met with a sudden burst of light, a faint glow illuminating the passage ahead. "This way," I shouted, my heart racing as we pushed toward the light. We emerged into a large chamber, the air fresh and cool against our skin. But as we took in our surroundings, my heart sank. The room was filled with debris, broken machinery, twisted metal, and the remnants of what had once been a thriving research facility. It was a stark reminder of the devastation wrought by the aliens. "Is there a way out?" Grohl asked, scanning the room. I searched for a path, my heart racing with urgency. "There has to be a way. We can't stay here." Just as I began to lose hope, I spotted a small door at the far end of the chamber. "Over there," I pointed, relief flooding through me. We rushed toward the door, but as we approached, the ground shook again, and the walls began to tremble. "Hurry!" I yelled, fear surging through me. With a final push, we reached the door and flung it open, bursting into the cool night air outside. We stumbled into a narrow alley, the stars shining overhead like a beacon of hope. But as we caught our breath, I realized we weren't out of danger yet. "Where do we go now?" Grohl panted, scanning the area. "We need to find the extraction point," I said, my heart racing. "It should be close." Suddenly, I heard a noise behind us, footsteps approaching fast. "They're coming," I shouted, adrenaline surging. "Run!" Grohl yelled, and we sprinted down the alley, the sound of our pursuers echoing in the distance. As we rounded a corner, I spotted a group of guards, their weapons drawn and ready. "Over here!" I shouted, waving my arms. The guards turned, their eyes widening with surprise as we raced toward them. "What happened?" one of them asked, urgency etched on his face. "We need to get to the extraction point," I gasped, breathless. "Follow us," another guard shouted, leading the way through the maze of alleyways. We pushed forward, fear driving us onward as we navigated the winding streets. The sounds of battle echoed in the distance, but we couldn't afford to look back. "Keep moving," I urged, adrenaline coursing through my veins. As we approached the extraction point, I could see a transport waiting, its lights blinking in the night. Relief surged through me, but it was short-lived. "They're right behind us," Grohl shouted, glancing back at the approaching aliens. "Get inside," the lead guard barked, ushering us toward the transport. We scrambled into the vehicle, our hearts racing as the doors slammed shut behind us. "Go, go," the guard shouted to the pilot as the transport surged forward, leaving the chaos of the colony behind us. As we sped away, I leaned back against the seat, my heart pounding in my chest. We had escaped, but the battle was far from over. "We made it," Grohl said, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "For now," I replied, my mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. "We need to regroup and prepare for what's coming." The transport surged through the darkness, the distant glow of the cityscape receding behind us. I sat back in my seat, trying to catch my breath, but my mind was racing. We had escaped the immediate danger, but what awaited us next? Grohl sat beside me, his eyes scanning the display screens in the cockpit, where the pilot and a couple of guards were frantically communicating with command. I turned to him. "What now?" He glanced at me, his expression serious. "Now we regroup. We need to get to a secure location and assess our options." The pilot's voice broke through the tension. "We're heading to the main base. They have medical facilities and command centers set up for the resistance." A glimmer of hope flickered in my chest. "Will they be able to help us? We've lost so much already." Grohl nodded, determination in his eyes. "They'll do everything they can. The fight is far from over, but we can't give up." As the transport veered away from the city, I looked out the window, the stars twinkling like distant sentinels. They felt so far away, as if mocking our plight. Yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that the universe still held some secrets we hadn't discovered. Perhaps we could find a way to turn the tide against our invaders. The transport flew over the remains of the city, the devastation evident even from above. Fires still burned, and the ground was scarred by craters from the alien bombardment. I closed my eyes for a moment, remembering the faces of those we had lost. Their sacrifice would not be in vain. The journey felt eternal, each second stretching into an hour as anxiety twisted in my stomach. But as we descended toward the base, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. We would rally together, find a strategy, and reclaim our home. The transport landed with a thud, the engines sputtering to silence. As the doors opened, a wave of cool air rushed in, mingling with the tension of impending conflict. We filed out into a makeshift command center bustling with activity, soldiers moving with purpose, techs hunched over consoles, and medics tending to the wounded. "Stay close," Grohl instructed, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. We navigated through the throng, our hearts pounding with adrenaline and fear. The walls were adorned with maps and schematics of the city, showing the strategic points the aliens had targeted. I felt a sinking realization: they were systematic in their destruction, targeting places of significance to break our spirit. "Over here," a voice called out, and we turned to find a familiar figure, Captain Rena, a seasoned leader within the Resistance. Her sharp eyes scanned us as she approached. "You made it. We thought we'd lost you." "We barely escaped," Grohl replied, his tone serious. "What's the situation here?" Rena gestured for us to follow her. "We're holding our own, but it's not enough. The aliens are pressing harder than ever. We need fresh intel and a plan." We entered a room filled with monitors displaying live feeds from various sectors of the city. Rena pointed to a map. "We've identified several key alien positions. They're using the old communications tower as a command post." "Can we take it?" I asked, my voice steady despite the stakes. Rena nodded, her expression resolute. "It's our best chance to disrupt their operations and gather intel on their next move. But we'll need a team to execute the plan. It's going to be dangerous." "I'll go," I said without hesitation, a fire igniting within me. "We can't sit back and wait for them to attack again." Grohl's gaze met mine, a mix of admiration and concern. "You sure about this?" "Absolutely," I replied. "We've come too far to turn back now." Rena smiled, a flicker of hope in her eyes. "All right, we'll need everyone we can get. Gather a team and meet me in 15 minutes. We'll go over the details." As she turned to leave, I felt a rush of determination. This was our chance to strike back, to show the aliens that humanity was not going to be an easy target. The next few minutes passed in a blur as Grohl and I gathered a group of fighters. Among them was Aiden, a sharpshooter with a reputation for accuracy, and Mira, a tech specialist known for her expertise in alien technology. Their presence bolstered my confidence. "Listen up," I addressed the group, adrenaline coursing through my veins. "We're going to hit the communications tower. Our goal is to take out their command center and gather intel. If we succeed, we can shift the balance in our favor." Aiden nodded, his expression grim. "What's the plan?" "Rena has intel on their defenses. We'll approach from the east, using the old sewer tunnels to remain undetected. Once we breach the perimeter, we'll disable their communication systems. Mira, you'll handle that part." Mira glanced at the map, her brows furrowing. "It won't be easy. They'll have guards stationed around, and their tech is advanced. We'll need to be quick." "Agreed," Grohl said, stepping forward. "We need to move in fast and strike hard. No hesitation." With the plan set, we gathered our gear, preparing for what lay ahead. As we donned our tactical vests, I couldn't help but feel the weight of responsibility. This wasn't just a mission, it was a chance to turn the tide in a war that had raged for far too long. We made our way to the transport that would take us to the outskirts of the city, where the entrance to the sewer system was hidden. The air grew tense, filled with unspoken fears and hopes. I could see it in the faces of my team. We were all ready to fight for our survival. The transport sped along the damaged streets, the remnants of our city whizzing by. The stark contrast between the destruction and the determination of my team pushed me forward. We were fighting not just for ourselves, but for every life that had been lost in this conflict. As we reached our destination, the transport came to a halt. We piled out and approached a grungy manhole cover, the entrance to our underground path. Aiden was the first to lift it, revealing the dark, damp tunnel below. "Let's move," I said, lowering myself into the darkness. The air was stale and heavy as we descended, the sound of dripping water echoing around us. I switched on my flashlight, illuminating the damp walls and uneven ground. "We'll stick close," I instructed, leading the way. The tunnel was narrow, forcing us to move in single file. I could feel the tension in the air, each of us aware of the danger that lay ahead. After what felt like an eternity, we reached a junction. "According to the map, we should head left," Mira said, consulting her device. "It should take us directly to the tower's base." "Let's go," I replied, pushing forward. We moved swiftly through the darkness, every footfall echoing ominously. My heart raced as we navigated the twists and turns, the uncertainty hanging heavy around us. Would we be ready for whatever lay ahead? Finally, we emerged from the tunnels, greeted by the cool night air. The communications tower loomed ahead, its structure imposing against the starlit sky. "Looks clear," Aiden whispered, scanning the area, "but we should stay low." We crouched behind a cluster of abandoned machinery, studying the tower's perimeter. Guards patrolled the area, their movements precise and calculated. "We need a distraction," Grohl said, his eyes narrowing. "Something to draw them away from the entrance." Mira tapped her device, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I might be able to hack into their security systems. If I can create a loop in their surveillance, we could slip in unnoticed." "Do it," I urged, my heart pounding. Mira knelt beside a panel, fingers flying over the screen as she worked. My gaze darted between her and the guards, anxiety twisting in my stomach. Time was of the essence. "Almost there," she murmured, her focus unwavering. The seconds ticked by painfully slowly, and just when I thought we'd be discovered, a chirp sounded from her device. "Got it. They'll be blind for the next 3 minutes." "Let's move," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. We dashed toward the entrance, hearts pounding as we crossed the open ground. The guards remained oblivious, their eyes fixed elsewhere. I pushed open the door, the stale air inside hitting us like a wall. Once inside, we were greeted by the dimly lit interior, screens flickering with alien symbols. "This is it," I breathed, the reality of our mission sinking in. "Focus," Grohl said, his voice steady. "Mira, find their communication hub. We need to cut them off from their command." "On it," Mira replied, darting toward a cluster of consoles. Aiden and I moved to cover the door, our senses heightened as we listened for any signs of danger. The tension in the air was palpable, the silence only broken by the soft hum of alien technology. Mira's fingers flew over the controls, her brow furrowed in concentration. "This is more complicated than I thought. They've locked down their systems tight." "Can you break in?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "I can try," she replied, determination flickering in her eyes. "But I'll need a few more minutes." "Do it," I urged, glancing at Grohl. "We've come too far to turn back now." The minutes stretched into what felt like hours as Mira worked, her focus unyielding. I could sense the pressure mounting as the possibility of discovery loomed over us. Every second felt like an eternity. Finally, a beep sounded from Mira's device. "Got it. I've overridden their systems. We're in." "Great job," I exclaimed, relief washing over me. "Now, let's take down their comms," she said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "Keep an eye on the door," Grohl instructed, positioning himself near the entrance. I stood ready, heart racing, aware of the danger that lurked just beyond our walls. But as Mira navigated the alien technology, a sense of purpose filled the room. "Almost there," she said, her focus unwavering. "Just a few more adjustments, and done." The screens flickered, and suddenly, the room filled with a cacophony of alarms. I felt my heart drop. "Mira, what did you do?" I shouted. I might have triggered their security alert," she said, her eyes wide. "But I got the communications down." "Then we need to move, now," Grohl commanded, urgency in his voice. Aiden moved to cover the door, his eyes scanning the darkness. "We're not alone anymore." "Let's go," I urged, grabbing Mira's arm as we sprinted toward the exit. Just as we reached the door, a squad of alien guards burst into the room, weapons drawn. "Go, go," Grohl shouted, shoving us forward as he fired his weapon. The sound of blaster fire echoed in the cramped space, and we scrambled through the doorway, adrenaline coursing through our veins. We dashed down the corridor, the sounds of pursuit behind us growing louder. I could feel the heat of danger closing in, each heartbeat a reminder of our desperate situation. "Left, down the hall," Aiden shouted, leading the way. We rounded the corner, the corridor stretching before us like a lifeline. The air was thick with tension, the sound of footsteps echoing behind us as we raced toward the exit. "Almost there," Aiden urged, glancing back. We burst through another door, emerging into the cool night air. But the chaos was far from over. Alien ships hovered above, their ominous silhouettes blocking out the stars. "Get to cover," Grohl shouted, leading us behind a stack of debris. I caught my breath, heart pounding as I scanned the area. We were surrounded, the aliens closing in, their weapons primed and ready. "We can't stay here," I said, desperation creeping into my voice. "Let's move," Grohl ordered, his voice steady. "We'll make a break for the transport." Together, we charged forward, dodging blasts of energy that singed the ground around us. Each step felt like a gamble, but we pressed on, the determination to survive driving us forward. As we neared the transport, the sound of gunfire erupted around us. I ducked behind a crate, adrenaline surging through my veins. "Cover me," Aiden shouted, firing back at the advancing aliens. I nodded, instinct kicking in as I provided cover for my teammates. The fight was chaotic, the air thick with the smell of burning debris and the echoes of battle. With each passing moment, I could feel the odds stacking against us, but we fought with everything we had. We were humanity's last line of defense, and we couldn't afford to fail. Finally, we reached the transport, the pilot ready to take us out. "Get in," he yelled, urgency in his voice. We climbed aboard, the adrenaline still pumping as the doors sealed shut. "Take us up," Grohl shouted, glancing back at the chaos below. The transport lifted off, and as we soared into the night, I felt a mix of relief and urgency. We had made it out, but the battle was far from over. As we gained altitude, I turned to Grohl, determination burning in my chest. "We need to regroup and plan our next move. We can't let them win." He nodded, a spark of hope in his eyes. "We won't. Not now." As we flew away from the chaos, the weight of what we had accomplished settled in. We had struck a blow against the aliens, but the war was far from over. The journey home was silent, each of us lost in our thoughts. We had survived, but at what cost? The fight was just beginning, and I knew we had to dig deep to find the strength we needed for what lay ahead. As we approached the base, I felt a flicker of hope. We were not alone in this fight. We were humanity, and we would rise to meet any challenge that dared to stand in our way. As the transport descended toward the base, I felt a mixture of relief and anticipation. We had just escaped a potentially fatal situation, and the thrill of surviving still buzzed through my veins. But as the stark reality of our circumstances settled in, I understood that our mission was just beginning. The base loomed ahead, a fortress of hope amidst the shadows of despair. Its walls were fortified, built to withstand the wrath of our invaders. I could see figures moving along the ramparts, a testament to the resilience of humanity. We were a fractured people, but our spirit remained unbroken. The transport landed smoothly, the ramp descending with a hiss. As we disembarked, the familiar buzz of activity greeted us, soldiers unloading supplies, medics tending to the wounded, and strategists huddled over screens. The atmosphere was thick with urgency, a palpable reminder that time was of the essence. Grohl led the way through the chaos, determination etched on his face. "We need to report to command. They'll want to know what we found." We maneuvered through the bustling command center, passing walls plastered with maps and updates on the alien positions. The air crackled with tension, each person acutely aware that we were in a race against time. "Commander," Grohl called out as we approached a tall woman in a military uniform, her brow furrowed in concentration. "We've returned from the communications tower." "Good to see you back," she replied, her voice steady but laced with urgency. "What's the situation?" "We successfully disabled their communications," I interjected, adrenaline still coursing through me. "But they're aware we struck. We barely escaped." The commander's expression darkened. "We need to fortify our defenses immediately. They'll retaliate." Grohl nodded, his resolve unwavering. "We have intel on their positions. We can prepare an ambush and gather our forces. Then let's get to work, the commander replied, her voice cutting through the chaos. We can't let them gain the upper hand again. Time blurred as we plunged into the heart of strategy meetings. The plan was simple: utilize the intel we had gathered to set up a trap for the aliens. Our window of opportunity was small, and every second counted. Rina, you'll lead the ground forces, the commander instructed. Aiden, Mira, I need you on tech support. Disable their defenses before they can counterattack. And Grohl. I'll coordinate the air support, he finished, his expression determined. I felt the weight of responsibility settle on my shoulders. What about me? You're with me, the commander replied, her tone firm. We'll strategize the final points of the ambush. You've seen the enemy's tactics firsthand. Your insight will be invaluable. Nodding, I followed her into a back room where holographic displays lit up the dim space. Maps and data floated above the table, revealing the positions of the alien forces. We've narrowed down their movements, she explained, gesturing to the screen. But we need to anticipate their next steps. They'll be cautious after our last strike. I leaned in, studying the holograms. If we can predict their approach, we can lure them into a vulnerable position. We should utilize the urban terrain. Familiar ground will work to our advantage. The commander raised an eyebrow. You think they'll underestimate our knowledge of the city? Absolutely, I replied, confidence swelling within me. They rely on brute strength. If we can create an environment where they're vulnerable, we have a chance. Then let's prepare for this ambush, she said, her tone resolute. We'll use the high-rise buildings for snipers and set traps at key points along their expected route. With our plan set, we moved into action. The command center buzzed with energy as teams organized supplies and weapons. I could feel the adrenaline building, a mixture of excitement and anxiety coursing through me. This was it, the moment we'd been waiting for. As night fell, the city transformed. Shadows stretched across the streets, a cloak of darkness enveloping our movements. We gathered on a rooftop overlooking the expected route of the alien forces, my heart racing with anticipation. Aiden, Mira, and Grohl joined me, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Here they come, Aiden whispered, scanning the horizon with a sniper rifle poised at his shoulder. My breath caught as I spotted the flicker of alien lights in the distance. Their ships moved like predators, sleek and menacing against the dark sky. They're moving in formation, I observed, adrenaline thrumming in my veins. They think they have the advantage. Time to show them otherwise, Grohl said, determination etched on his face. We watched as the alien forces drew closer, the sounds of their engines reverberating through the night. I could feel the tension in the air, a charged silence before the storm. On my mark, Aiden instructed, his finger hovering over the trigger. I nodded, my heart racing. This was it. 3, 2, 1, now. Aiden fired, the crack of his rifle echoing through the night. The bullet found its target, and chaos erupted as the alien forces were thrown into disarray. Move, Grohl shouted, leading us into the fray. We descended from the rooftop, rushing into the streets below. The alien forces were scrambling, confused by the sudden assault. We utilized the urban terrain, darting from cover to cover, and the adrenaline surged through me, propelling me forward. Set the traps, Mira yelled, her voice ringing above the sounds of battle. We hurried to our designated spots, quickly activating the traps designed to incapacitate the enemy. The air was electric, every heartbeat amplifying the thrill of combat. Suddenly, alien blasters fired in our direction, the energy beams searing the air. We ducked for cover, the heat from their shots singeing the ground around us. We need to flank them, Grohl shouted, taking point. Follow me. We surged forward, coordinating our movements as we maneuvered through the chaos. The alien forces were formidable, but they were disorganized, struggling to adapt to our strategy. Right flank, we need to create a crossfire, Aiden directed, his sniper skills coming into play as he picked off targets. The battle was intense, each moment a blend of strategy and instinct. I could feel the stakes rising as we fought for our survival, but hope flickered within me. We were making progress. As the fight raged on, I spotted a familiar face among the chaos, Rena, leading her squad through the fray. She was a beacon of determination, rallying our forces and pushing back against the alien advance. "Rena," I called out, rushing to her side. "We're making progress, but we need to keep the pressure on." "Agreed," she replied, her voice steady despite the chaos. "We can't give them a moment to regroup." We fought side by side, our movements synchronized as we pushed deeper into the heart of the battle. The adrenaline was intoxicating, fueling our resolve. But just as we began to gain the upper hand, a thunderous roar echoed overhead. I looked up to see a massive alien ship descending, its presence casting a shadow over the battlefield. "Fall back," Grohl shouted, urgency in his voice. We retreated momentarily, the sight of the colossal ship filling me with dread. It was a reminder of the overwhelming force we were up against. "Reinforcements," Renat called out, rallying our troops. "We can't let fear take hold. Hold your ground." The alien ship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, and we dove for cover. The ground shook beneath us as explosions rocked the area, debris flying in all directions. "Everyone, fall back to the secondary position." The commander's voice crackled over the comms. "We need to regroup." With the chaos swirling around us, we retreated toward a safer vantage point. The battle was shifting, and I could feel the tide turning against us. The alien forces were regrouping, and we needed to think strategically. "Do we have any heavy artillery left?" I asked Rena as we took cover behind a barricade. "Just a few units, but they're not enough to take down that ship," she replied, frustration evident in her tone. Mira glanced at her device, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I might be able to hack into their systems again, but I'll need a moment. The ship's defenses are intense." "Then we need to buy you that time," Grohl said, determination in his eyes. "Aiden, can you cover her?" "Absolutely," Aiden replied, his grip tightening around his rifle. "Rena, let's push forward and draw their attention," I said, a plan forming in my mind. "We can't let them focus on Mira." "Right," Rena agreed, her resolve unwavering. "On 3, we make our move. 1, 2, 3. We surged forward, drawing the attention of the alien forces as we opened fire. The air filled with blaster fire, the sound of combat ringing in our ears. Mira worked quickly, her fingers flying over the screen as she navigated through the alien technology. I could see the tension etched on her face, each second ticking by like a countdown. Come on," she murmured, her concentration unwavering. A bolt of energy soared past me, and I ducked behind cover, adrenaline fueling my movements. "Hold on, Mira, we're buying you time." "Almost there," she shouted, her voice filled with urgency. "Just a little longer." Rena and I continued to push forward, keeping the alien forces occupied while Aiden provided cover from the rear. The tension mounted as the alien ship loomed overhead, and I knew we had to act fast. Suddenly, the air crackled, and a surge of energy surged from the alien ship, a blast aimed directly at us. I ducked behind a crate, feeling the heat wash over me as the blast struck nearby. "Watch out!" Grohl shouted, taking cover beside us. "We need to keep them distracted." With a renewed sense of determination, we pressed on, our resolve unyielding. I could feel the odds against us, but we fought as if our lives depended on it. Because they did. "Now," Mira shouted, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I've hacked into their systems. Their shields are down." "Let's finish this," Rena yelled, rallying our forces. "Everyone, focus your fire on that ship," Grohl commanded, his voice carrying over the din of battle. As we unleashed a barrage of energy blasts toward the alien ship, I felt a surge of hope. We were striking back, fighting for our survival, and in that moment it felt like we could win. The alien ship shuddered, the hull vibrating under the onslaught. "It's working," Aiden shouted, excitement in his voice. But just as victory seemed within our grasp, The ship retaliated, unleashing another wave of energy blasts. "Take cover," Rena yelled, diving behind a barricade as explosions erupted around us. The chaos intensified as the alien forces regrouped, pushing forward with renewed determination. The battle was far from over, but we refused to back down. "Keep pushing," Grohl shouted, firing back at the aliens. "We can't let them take this position." With each passing moment, I could feel the weight of our struggle pressing down. This was a fight for our future, and we had to give everything we had. As we pressed forward, the alien ship wavered, struggling to regain control. The tide of battle was shifting, and we had to seize the moment. "Now, while their defenses are down," Rena urged, rallying our troops. Together, we surged forward, pushing the aliens back, taking advantage of their disarray. "Keep up the pressure," I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. "We can't let them regroup." With every blast fired and every step taken, I felt a sense of unity among our forces. We were fighting for each other, for our survival, and that strength fueled our resolve. As we approached the alien ship, the energy around us crackled with potential. This was our chance to finish what we started, to take back our home. Suddenly, the ship emitted a low hum, and an energy field enveloped the area. My heart raced as I realized what was happening, a desperate move from the alien forces. "Fall back," I yelled, urgency flooding my voice. "We need to retreat." But it was too late. The energy field surged, engulfing us in a blinding light. The blinding light enveloped me, and for a moment I was lost in the brilliance. My senses dulled, the sounds of battle fading into a distant echo. Then, with a sudden jolt, reality slammed back into focus. I found myself sprawled on the ground, surrounded by the chaos of war. My heart raced as I pushed myself up, scanning the area for my teammates. Dust and debris filled the air, making it hard to breathe. The battlefield was a war zone, smoke billowed from shattered buildings, and the crackle of energy blasts resonated around me. "Rena!" I shouted, fear gripping my chest. "Aiden!" Grohl. No answer came. Panic surged through me as I staggered to my feet, struggling to regain my bearings. I wiped dirt from my eyes, squinting through the haze. "Status report." The commander's voice echoed over the comms, cutting through the chaos. "What's happening out there?" "I'm alive," I yelled back, scrambling to my feet. "But I can't find my team." "Focus, Aiden," she replied. "We need to regroup. Where are you?" "I'm near the remains of the old communication tower," I managed to say, my heart pounding in my chest. We were pushing toward the alien ship when the energy field hit. "Understood. Stay where you are. We're sending a team to your location," she instructed. "Hold tight." I nodded, even though she couldn't see me, and moved cautiously through the wreckage. The battlefield had transformed into a hellscape. Buildings lay in ruins, and the streets were littered with debris, remnants of our struggle. "Rena, Aiden, Grohl," I called again, desperation creeping into my voice. Each second felt like an eternity, and I fought against the rising tide of hopelessness. Suddenly, I heard a faint groan nearby. My heart leaped as I rushed toward the sound. There, partially buried under rubble, was Grohl, his face smeared with dirt and blood. "Grohl," I exclaimed, kneeling beside him. "Are you okay?" "I think so," he grunted, grimacing as he tried to push the debris off himself. "Just a bit shaken up." With a surge of adrenaline, I helped him clear the rubble. As he sat up, I noticed the bruises blooming on his arms and the cut above his brow. "Where's the others?" he asked, glancing around. "I don't know," I admitted, a lump forming in my throat. "I lost contact with them." Grohl nodded, determination returning to his eyes. "We need to find them. They could be hurt." Just then, a voice crackled through the comms again. "Aiden, Grohl, do you read me?" It was Mira. "Mira, we're here," I shouted, relief flooding my chest. "Thank God," she replied, her voice shaky but steady. "I'm near the old subway station. We need to regroup. There's a medical unit there." "On our way," Grohl responded, pushing to his feet. "Lead the way, Aiden." I nodded, and we set off through the rubble-strewn streets, moving cautiously as we navigated the wreckage. The sounds of battle still echoed in the distance, but they felt muted now, overshadowed by the fear of losing our teammates. As we rounded a corner, I spotted the remnants of what used to be a bustling marketplace. Vendors' stalls lay overturned, their wares scattered across the ground. I felt a pang of sadness at the destruction, the echoes of lives disrupted by the war. "Look," Grohl said suddenly, pointing toward a figure struggling beneath a fallen beam. "That could be Aiden." I rushed forward, adrenaline surging through me as I approached the fallen beam. "Aiden, can you hear me?" A muffled groan answered me, and I quickly began to lift the beam. With Grohl's help, we managed to shift it off Aiden's body. He lay there, pale and still, but his chest rose and fell faintly. "Stay with us, Aiden," I urged, checking for injuries. "We'll get you out of here." His eyes fluttered open, and a weak smile spread across his face. "I knew you'd come." "Let's get you to safety," Grohl said, helping Aiden sit up. I glanced around, my heart racing. "We need to move. Mira's waiting for us at the subway station." With Aiden leaning on us for support, we carefully made our way through the wreckage, the sounds of distant explosions and blaster fire filling the air. When we reached the subway station, the atmosphere shifted. The entrance was partially intact, and a small group of survivors had gathered there. Mira was among them, her expression a mix of relief and worry. "Thank the stars you're okay," she exclaimed, rushing to meet us. "We found Aiden," I said, helping him to a bench where others were tending to their wounds. "He'll need medical attention." Mira nodded, moving to Aiden's side. "I can help. Just give me a moment." As she worked, Grohl and I stepped aside to survey our surroundings. The subway station had become a makeshift medical unit, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows against the walls. Survivors huddled together, their faces etched with exhaustion. "Do you think we can regroup here?" Grohl asked, glancing around. "We're vulnerable out in the open." "Yeah, we need to stay cautious," I replied, my mind racing. "But we can't remain idle. We have to find a way to strike back." "Agreed," Grohl said, determination etched on his features. "We've already lost too much ground. The aliens won't stop coming until they've eradicated us." Mira returned, her face pale but focused. "Aiden needs rest, but he'll be fine. We should plan our next move while we can." "Right," I said, glancing at the survivors. "We need to gather intel. If we can find out the aliens' next moves, we can prepare." We convened with a small group of survivors who had managed to bring in their own intel. They shared information about the aliens' movements, revealing that they were regrouping after our ambush but seemed to lack a clear plan. "The commander is rallying the remaining troops," one of the survivors said, his voice steady despite the chaos around us. "We're coordinating efforts to launch a counteroffensive." I felt a flicker of hope. "We need to be ready. If we can strike before they reorganize, we might be able to turn the tide." "Exactly," Grohl said, looking at me with determination. "We'll leverage everything we have to hit them hard." As we strategized, I could feel the weight of our situation. Each plan we made felt like a fragile thread, holding together our hopes of survival. But within that fragility lay a steely resolve. We weren't just fighting for ourselves. We were fighting for the future of humanity. "Let's make sure we utilize the element of surprise," I suggested. "We can set traps along their expected route while launching a secondary assault to distract them." Mira nodded, her expression contemplative. "We'll need to split our forces. Some will create distractions, while others set traps." "Agreed," Grohl said, his voice steady. "But we need to ensure everyone is on the same page. Confusion could cost us dearly." We spent hours refining our plan, the atmosphere heavy with urgency. As the makeshift command center buzzed with activity, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple, we finalized our strategies. The time had come to reclaim our city. "Listen up," I called out to the assembled survivors and soldiers as we gathered outside the subway station. "Tonight, we fight back. We will strike at the heart of the alien forces and take back what is ours." A chorus of determined voices rose in response, and the air buzzed with anticipation. Each person here was willing to risk everything for the fight ahead. "We'll split into 2 groups," I continued, my voice steady. "Group A will set the traps along the main thoroughfare, while Group B will create a diversion at the outskirts of the city. We'll draw the aliens in, giving Group A the opportunity to hit them hard." Mira stepped forward, her gaze fierce. "We'll coordinate from a safe vantage point. If things get out of hand, we'll adjust our strategies on the fly." "Remember, we're not just fighting for ourselves," Grohl said, raising his voice. "We're fighting for everyone who's counting on us. We can't let fear dictate our actions. Together, we'll show them the strength of humanity." As the crowd erupted in cheers, I felt a surge of hope. In that moment, I realized the power of our unity. We were more than soldiers, we were a force of nature, and together we would reclaim our future. The night air was cool as we split into our respective groups. I moved with Group A, heart pounding as we set our traps along the anticipated alien route. "Everyone stay sharp," I reminded the team as we positioned the last trap. "We don't know when they'll strike, but we have to be ready." As the minutes passed, tension hung in the air. Each sound felt amplified, every rustle a potential harbinger of the impending conflict. Suddenly, an alarm blared from the outskirts. "That's our signal," I shouted, adrenaline surging through me. "Let's move," Grohl urged, and we hurried to our positions, anticipation building within us. As we settled in, I watched the darkness, waiting for the moment to strike. The distant echoes of explosions reverberated in the air, signaling the start of our plan. "Hold your fire until they're in range," I instructed, heart racing. With bated breath, we waited. Then, silhouettes emerged from the darkness, the aliens advancing in their usual formation. "Now," I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins as we unleashed our fire. The night erupted into chaos. Energy blasts lit up the darkness, illuminating the chaos of our counteroffensive. I could see the aliens falter, confusion spreading through their ranks as we executed our plan. "Push forward," Grohl yelled, firing at the disoriented enemy. "We can't give them a chance to regroup." We surged ahead, striking at the heart of the alien forces. The satisfaction of reclaiming ground fueled our determination, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of hope. But just as we pressed forward, a blinding light erupted from the alien ship, illuminating the battlefield in stark white. "Get down," I shouted, diving behind cover. The blast exploded, sending debris flying as the aliens retaliated with newfound vigor. Their forces reorganized, and the tide of battle shifted once more. "Fall back. Regroup," I commanded, scrambling to gather my team. As we retreated, the weight of our struggle pressed down on me. We had tasted victory, but it felt fleeting, overshadowed by the looming threat of the aliens. When we reached the relative safety of a nearby building, I turned to my team, assessing the situation. Everyone was shaken, but we were still standing. "We need to regroup and rethink our strategy," I said, urgency lacing my voice. "If they've adjusted their tactics, we need to stay one step ahead." Mira nodded, her expression determined. "We can't lose this momentum. We need to find a way to exploit their weaknesses." "Let's get a lay of the land," Grohl suggested. "If we can find a vantage point, we can assess their movements and adjust our plans." I agreed, my heart racing with anticipation. "Let's move, team. We'll reclaim our city." As we navigated the ruins, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through me. Every step brought us closer to the heart of the conflict. The sounds of battle filled the air, urging us onward. When we reached the rooftop of the building, the scene below was a whirlwind of chaos. Alien forces clashed with our remaining troops, their movements coordinated yet frantic. "Look!" Mira pointed toward the alien ship. "They're attempting to regroup." If we strike now, we could disrupt their formation. Let's do it, I said, feeling the weight of our mission pressing down on me. If we can create enough chaos, we might just gain the upper hand. Grohl and I took positions at the edge of the rooftop, carefully aiming our weapons as Mira coordinated from behind. On my mark, she said, her voice steady. 3, 2, 1, now! We unleashed our fire, targeting the alien ship. The blast struck true, and the ship shuddered under our assault, the force of our attack echoing through the air. Keep firing, I shouted, adrenaline surging through my veins. Don't let up. As we pressed on, the chaos below began to shift. The aliens, caught off guard by our renewed assault, faltered, their lines breaking under the pressure. Push forward, Grohl yelled, determination etched on his face. We watched as our forces rallied, taking advantage of the disarray among the aliens. Hope surged within me. This was our moment, a chance to reclaim what had been lost. As the battle raged on, the tide of the conflict turned in our favor. With each coordinated strike, we gained ground, pushing the alien forces back. We're making progress, I shouted, feeling the exhilaration of victory wash over me. But just as the exhilaration peaked, the alien ship unleashed a retaliatory blast. Watch out, Mira yelled, pulling us back just in time as the energy surge exploded against the rooftop, sending debris flying. Fall back, I commanded, adrenaline coursing through me as we scrambled away from the edge. As we regrouped in the shadows, I could feel the weight of the battle pressing down. We had gained ground, but the fight was far from over. Are we ready to go again? Grohl asked, determination etched on his features. Yeah, I replied, heart racing. We just need to adjust our tactics. We have to exploit their weaknesses, but we need to stay alert. They're regrouping. We spent the next moments regrouping and adjusting our strategy. The sound of battle filled the air, and I could feel the tension mounting. We need to push towards their command center, I said, urgency lacing my voice. If we can take out their leadership, we can scatter their forces. Mira nodded, her expression determined. Let's move quickly. We don't have much time. As we slipped through the shadows, the battle raged on around us. I could feel the weight of our mission pressing down, but the fire of determination burned bright within me. As we approached the alien command center, the atmosphere shifted. The air crackled with tension, and the sound of alien chatter filled the air. We crept forward, adrenaline surging through our veins. Stay low and keep quiet, I instructed, scanning the area. We need to take them by surprise. Mira nodded, her eyes wide with focus. I'll disable their security systems. Perfect, Grohl said, his voice steady. Let's move. As we infiltrated the command center, my heart raced with anticipation. This was our chance to end the conflict, to reclaim our future. The command center loomed ahead, its metallic facade glinting ominously in the flickering light of the battlefield outside. A heavy door guarded our entry, adorned with alien symbols that pulsed with a faint glow. My heart raced with anticipation. This was it. If we could breach this stronghold, we might dismantle the aliens' command structure and shift the momentum of the war. Stay sharp, I whispered, glancing at my team. Mira worked quickly at a control panel, her fingers flying over the alien interface. Almost there, she murmured, sweat glistening on her forehead as she decoded the alien locks. Just a few more seconds. Grohl stood guard, his eyes scanning the dim corridor behind us. The air was thick with tension, punctuated only by the distant sounds of battle echoing through the halls. Got it, Mira exclaimed, and with a soft hiss, the door slid open. The air inside was cooler, carrying the hum of technology. We slipped through, weapons drawn, ready for anything. The command center was a labyrinth of consoles and screens, filled with alien tech that hummed and flickered ominously. In the center, a large holographic display projected the battlefield, detailing the movements of both our forces and the aliens. Over there, I pointed to a cluster of aliens gathered around a central console. We need to take them out before they can react. Mira nodded, her eyes darting to the monitors. "I'll try to disable their communications. If we can cut them off from the rest of the fleet, we'll have a chance to isolate them." "Do it," I urged, inching forward. "We'll cover you." As we advanced, the aliens at the console were oblivious to our presence. They chattered among themselves, their attention fixed on the screens displaying our forces outside. "3, 2, 1, now!" I shouted. We opened fire simultaneously, our shots ringing out in the enclosed space. The aliens barely had time to react before they were caught in our crossfire, their bodies crumpling to the ground. "Nice work," Grohl said, glancing at me with a fierce grin. "Keep moving," I replied, urgency propelling us forward. "We need to find their command leader." Mira, now focused on the central console, furiously typed commands. The holographic display shifted, revealing a network of lines and nodes. "I'm in," she said breathlessly, "but we need to hurry. They'll notice something's wrong soon." "Let's check the nearby rooms," I suggested. "We might find intel or a way to shut down their defenses." We split up, cautiously searching the nearby chambers. The atmosphere was tense, and every creak of the metal walls sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. In one of the side rooms, I discovered a cache of weapons, alien rifles and energy grenades stacked neatly against the walls. "Grohl, over here," I called, excitement bubbling within me. He rushed in, eyes widening at the sight. "This could be a game changer. We'll need every advantage we can get." We quickly gathered the weapons, stowing them away for the fight ahead. As we returned to Mira, she looked up, her expression a mix of triumph and urgency. "I've got their communication lines cut off," she said, her brow furrowed. "But we need to disable the main reactor to prevent them from calling for reinforcements." "Where's the reactor?" I asked, scanning the console for any information. "It should be in the lower level," she replied, her fingers hovering over the controls. "But we'll need to hurry. They'll figure out what's happening soon." "Then let's move," I said, determination filling my voice. "Grohl, you and I will head to the reactor. Mira, keep an eye on the console and give us updates." "Be careful," she warned, her eyes serious. "I'll monitor the situation from here." As we made our way toward the lower levels, the atmosphere thickened. The echoes of distant explosions still rang through the air, but they were starting to sound desperate, like a tide pulling back before a wave. The stairs descended into darkness, the only light coming from the bioluminescent panels lining the walls. Each step felt heavy as we moved deeper into the alien stronghold. "This place is like a maze," Grohl muttered, glancing around. "It's disorienting." "Just stay focused," I replied, feeling the weight of our mission pressing down on me. "We need to find that reactor." At the bottom of the stairs, we emerged into a vast chamber filled with alien machinery. A series of towering conduits and glowing panels pulsed rhythmically, the heart of the command center thrumming with energy. "There it is," I pointed to a massive structure at the center of the chamber, pulsating with a menacing glow. "That's the reactor. If we blow that, we'll disable their entire operation." Grohl nodded, scanning the area for any threats. "We need to plant explosives around it and get out fast." As we set to work, the tension in the air heightened. I could almost feel the eyes of the aliens watching us, aware that something was amiss. "Keep an eye out for any patrols," I instructed, my heart racing as I prepared the explosives. "We can't afford to be caught now." Just as we finished setting the last explosive charge, the ground shook with the force of an explosion above us. "What was that?" Grohl shouted, his eyes wide. "I don't know," I replied, my heart pounding. "But we need to hurry." As we turned to leave, the door to the reactor chamber burst open, and a squad of armed aliens stormed in. Their eyes glowed with rage, weapons drawn and ready to fire. "Run!" I shouted, grabbing Grohl's arm and pulling him toward the exit. We sprinted through the chamber, the sound of alien weapons firing echoing behind us. The air crackled with energy blasts, and I could feel the heat of near misses on my skin. "We're not going to make it," Grohl yelled, panic creeping into his voice. We will, I insisted, adrenaline surging through me. We just have to believe. We burst through the door and into the corridor, the sound of battle raging outside. Explosions rocked the building, sending tremors through the walls as the alien forces began to crumble. "Where do we go now?" Grohl asked, glancing over his shoulder. "Back to Mira," I shouted, urgency driving my feet as we raced toward the stairs. We ascended the stairs two at a time, the sound of alien chaos echoing behind us. As we reached the upper level, we skidded to a halt. Mira was still at the console, but her expression was grave. "They're regrouping. We need to get out of here now," she yelled. "I planted the explosives," I exclaimed, my heart racing. "We need to trigger them." Mira glanced at the monitor, her fingers flying over the controls. "I'll initiate the countdown. We need to make sure we're far enough away when it goes off." "Let's move," Grohl shouted, and we sprinted toward the exit. As we barreled down the corridor, the building shuddered beneath our feet, the sounds of battle growing more frantic. 10 seconds, Mira shouted over the comms, her voice steady despite the chaos around us. "Almost there," I yelled, adrenaline surging through my veins. We burst out into the night air, the battlefield sprawling before us. Our forces were still engaged in battle, but I could see the tide turning. The aliens were struggling to regroup, confusion rippling through their ranks. 5 seconds, Mira called out, her voice echoing in my ear. "Get clear," Grohl shouted, pulling me toward a nearby barricade. In that moment, the world exploded. The reactor detonated with a blinding light, the shockwave rippling through the air. I shielded my eyes, and when I dared to look back, the command center was engulfed in flames, a plume of smoke rising into the night sky. "Did it work?" I shouted, my heart pounding with anticipation. "Look," Grohl pointed toward the battlefield. The alien forces were faltering, their lines breaking under the pressure of our counteroffensive. "It worked," I yelled, exhilaration surging through me. "We did it." With renewed vigor, we charged back into the fray, rallying our forces. The alien command structure had crumbled, and for the first time, we were on the offensive. "Let's finish this," I shouted, leading the charge as we pushed forward. The sound of energy blast filled the air as we fought our way through the disarray of alien forces. The tide had turned, and we pressed on, determined to reclaim our world. As we fought, I could see the remnants of alien forces scattering, their confidence shattered. The fires from the command center illuminated the battlefield, casting eerie shadows as we pressed on. "Keep pushing," I yelled, adrenaline fueling my every move. The chaos of battle surrounded us, but within that chaos, a sense of unity formed. We were fighting not just for survival, but for a future. Hours later, as dawn began to break, we stood amidst the remnants of the battlefield. The air was thick with smoke and the acrid smell of burning debris, but a sense of triumph surged through us. "We did it," Grohl said, a grin spreading across his face. "We actually did it." Mira joined us, her expression a mixture of exhaustion and elation. "The alien forces are in retreat. We've regained control of the city." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, hope blossomed within me. This was a turning point. We had faced overwhelming odds and emerged victorious, but the war was far from over. "We have to consolidate our forces," I said, scanning the horizon as the first rays of sunlight broke through the smoke. "We need to prepare for whatever comes next." Grohl and Mira nodded, determination etched on their faces. The morning after our victory brought no respite. The city was still smoldering, the sky filled with acrid smoke, and the ground beneath our feet littered with debris from the decimated alien forces. We had crippled the enemy's command structure, but I knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had been thrown into disarray, but their full armada was still out there, scattered but not defeated. We regrouped at a makeshift command post set up in the ruins of a skyscraper. Mira was coordinating with other human outposts, while Grohl was inspecting the alien technology we had scavenged from the command center. His eyes sparkled with curiosity as he handled a sleek alien rifle, adjusting its unfamiliar settings. They may be ahead in tech, but this stuff isn't infallible, Grohl muttered, handing me a small device that looked like a grenade but emitted a faint humming noise. These weapons are incredibly advanced, but there are gaps in their design. We can exploit that. I took the device, inspecting it carefully. What does this one do? Grohl grinned. From what I can tell, it creates a localized EMP field. Could disable enemy weapons, maybe even their ships, if we can figure out the right frequency. I pocketed the device. Keep working on it. We'll need every edge we can get. Mira approached, her face grim. I've just gotten word from other human factions. The alien forces are still strong in other sectors. Some are regrouping faster than expected. I cursed under my breath. We need to strike before they can recover. We've crippled their leadership, but they'll rally quickly. We can't let them rebuild their strength. Mira nodded. I agree, but we can't just charge in blindly. We need a plan. We need to hit them where it hurts, Grohl said, standing up and crossing his arms. Their ships. If we can take out their remaining fleet, they won't have the firepower to mount a counterattack. Easier said than done, I muttered, pacing the floor. Their ships are heavily shielded, and we've got barely enough firepower to take out one, let alone an entire fleet. Mira's eyes flickered with an idea. What if we didn't have to destroy their ships? What if we could disable them? I stopped pacing, narrowing my eyes at her. Go on. She pulled up a holographic display, showing the alien fleet hovering in orbit above the planet. Their ships rely on a central energy source, an immense power core that fuels their shields, weapons, everything. If we can overload that core, we could cause a chain reaction that would knock out the entire fleet. How do we get close enough to do that? Grohl asked, frowning. Their defenses will tear us apart before we get within striking distance. Mira smiled faintly. That's where our scavenged tech comes in. We've been able to decipher some of their cloaking technology. It's rudimentary, but it should be enough to get a small team through their defenses. I looked at her, weighing the risks. A small team? We're talking about infiltrating an alien mothership. This is a suicide mission. She met my gaze, unwavering. It's our only chance. We've weakened them, but if we don't take out their fleet now, they'll come back stronger. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. She was right. This was our shot. All right, I said, my voice firm. We're doing this. Mira, you keep working on the cloaking tech. Grohl, see if you can figure out how to adapt those EMP devices to take out their ship's core. I'll rally a strike team. The hours passed in a blur as we prepared for what could be our final mission. The mood among the troops was somber but determined. Everyone knew the stakes. We were fighting for the survival of our species, and this mission could tip the scales in our favor. Mira and Grohl worked tirelessly to integrate the alien tech into our ship's systems. While I handpicked the team for the infiltration, it would be a small group, just enough to slip past their defenses and reach the core. I selected the best soldiers we had, men and women who had survived the worst battles of the war and come out stronger for it. By nightfall, everything was ready. We stood on the tarmac, our cloaked ship looming before us like a shadow in the dim light. The air was thick with tension, but there was no turning back now. Everyone ready? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence. The team nodded, their faces set with grim determination. Let's move, I ordered, and we boarded the ship. The flight to the alien mothership was eerily quiet. Our cloaking system was active, and we slipped past their outer defenses unnoticed. As we approached the massive alien vessel, I couldn't help but marvel at its sheer size. It was a behemoth, a floating fortress of metal and energy, its surface bristling with weapons and sensors. This is it, Mira said quietly from the pilot's seat. We're coming up on the entry point. Grohl, seated beside her, checked the EMP devices one last time. Once we're inside, we'll need to move fast. The core will be heavily guarded. I nodded, my mind already racing through the plan. We stick to the plan. Get in, plant the devices, and get out. No heroics. As we neared the ship's docking bay, Mira activated the cloaked landing sequence. The ship hummed as it maneuvered silently into position, sliding into the alien vessel like a ghost. "Touchdown," Mira whispered, her voice tense. We disembarked, weapons at the ready. The interior of the alien ship was even more alien than the battlefield we'd left behind. Everything was sleek, metallic, and faintly glowing with a strange, otherworldly energy. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and the walls seemed to hum with the pulse of the ship's power core. "Stay sharp," I murmured as we moved through the corridors, our footsteps silent on the polished floor. We're deep in enemy territory now. We navigated the labyrinthine halls of the mothership, relying on Mira's scans and Grohl's knowledge of alien tech to guide us. It wasn't long before we encountered our first patrol, a group of 3 heavily armed aliens. They were tall and spindly, their armor sleek and reflective, their weapons crackling with energy. I signaled for the team to hold. We couldn't risk an all-out firefight, not here. I motioned to Grohl, who held up one of the EMP grenades. He lobbed it silently toward the aliens, and as it landed, a pulse of energy rippled out, disabling their weapons and sending them into disarray. "Move," I ordered, and we quickly dispatched the disoriented aliens with precise shots. The deeper we ventured, the more resistance we encountered. Alien patrols grew more frequent, and it became clear that they were aware something was wrong, even if they hadn't pinpointed us yet. The tension was suffocating, every step bringing us closer to discovery. Finally, we reached the core chamber. The massive, pulsating structure dominated the room, its energy flowing through conduits that snaked through the walls like veins. Alien guards surrounded it, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. "This is it," I whispered. "We take out the core, and the fleet goes with it." We moved quickly, planting the EMP devices at strategic points around the core. The alien guards were on high alert now, and it was only a matter of time before they spotted us. "Plant the last charge," I hissed to Grohl as we ducked behind cover, the guards' movements becoming more erratic. Grohl nodded, moving to place the final device. But just as he reached the core, the alarm blared. "They've spotted us," Mira shouted, raising her weapon. "Finish it," I ordered, opening fire on the guards. The room erupted into chaos as we fought to defend our position. Alien weapons fired from all directions, and the air crackled with energy blasts. But Grohl moved with speed and precision, planting the last charge just as an alien soldier lunged at him. He barely dodged the attack, rolling to the side and firing back. The alien dropped, but more were closing in. "We need to go, now," I shouted, covering Grohl as he retreated. Mira triggered the countdown on the EMP devices, and the core began to pulse erratically, its energy fluctuating wildly. "Move! Move!" I yelled as we raced back toward the docking bay, the ship's alarms blaring all around us. We reached the ship just as the first explosions rocked the mothership. The EMP devices had triggered a chain reaction, and the core was collapsing in on itself, sending shockwaves through the alien vessel. "Go, Mira! Get us out of here!" I shouted as we boarded the ship. Mira didn't need to be told twice. She hit the thrusters, and we shot out of the docking bay just as the mothership imploded behind us. We watched in awe as the alien fleet above the planet flickered and dimmed, their power cut off by the destruction of the core. One by one, their ships began to drift, powerless and vulnerable. "We did it," I breathed, hardly able to believe it. The alien fleet was crippled. For the first time in years, the tide of the war had turned in humanity's favor. The morning after our victory brought no respite. The city was still smoldering, the sky filled with acrid smoke, and the ground beneath our feet littered with debris from the decimated alien forces. We had crippled the enemy's command structure, but I knew this was just the beginning. The aliens had been thrown into disarray, but their full armada was still out there, scattered but not defeated. We regrouped at a makeshift command post set up in the ruins of a skyscraper. Mira was coordinating with other human outposts, while Grohl was inspecting the alien technology we had scavenged from the command center. His eyes sparkled with curiosity as he handled a sleek alien rifle, adjusting its unfamiliar settings. They may be ahead in tech, but this stuff isn't infallible, Grohl muttered, handing me a small device that looked like a grenade, but emitted a faint humming noise. These weapons are incredibly advanced, but there are gaps in their design. We can exploit that. I took the device, inspecting it carefully. What does this one do? Grohl grinned. From what I can tell, it creates a localized EMP field. Could disable enemy weapons, maybe even their ships, if we can figure out the right frequency. I pocketed the device. Keep working on it. We'll need every edge we can get. Mira approached, her face grim. I've just gotten word from other human factions. The alien forces are still strong in other sectors. Some are regrouping faster than expected. I cursed under my breath. We need to strike before they can recover. We've crippled their leadership, but they'll rally quickly. We can't let them rebuild their strength. Mira nodded. I agree, but we can't just charge in blindly. We need a plan. We need to hit them where it hurts, Grohl said, standing up and crossing his arms. Their ships. If we can take out their remaining fleet, they won't have the firepower to mount a counterattack. Easier said than done, I muttered, pacing the floor. Their ships are heavily shielded, and we've got barely enough firepower to take out one, let alone an entire fleet. Mira's eyes flickered with an idea. What if we didn't have to destroy their ships? What if we could disable them? I stopped pacing, narrowing my eyes at her. Go on. She pulled up a holographic display, showing the alien fleet hovering in orbit above the planet. Their ships rely on a central energy source, an immense power core that fuels their shields, weapons, everything. If we can overload that core, we could cause a chain reaction that would knock out the entire fleet. How do we get close enough to do that? Grohl asked, frowning. Their defenses will tear us apart before we get within striking distance. Mira smiled faintly. That's where our scavenged tech comes in. We've been able to decipher some of their cloaking technology. It's rudimentary, but it should be enough to get a small team through their defenses. I looked at her, weighing the risks. A small team? We're talking about infiltrating an alien mothership. This is a suicide mission. She met my gaze, unwavering. It's our only chance. We've weakened them. But if we don't take out their fleet now, they'll come back stronger. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. She was right. This was our shot. All right, I said, my voice firm. We're doing this. Mira, you keep working on the cloaking tech. Grohl, see if you can figure out how to adapt those EMP devices to take out their ship's core. I'll rally a strike team. The hours passed in a blur as we prepared for what could be our final mission. The mood among the troops was somber but determined. Everyone knew the stakes. We were fighting for the survival of our species, and this mission could tip the scales in our favor. Mira and Grohl worked tirelessly to integrate the alien tech into our ship's systems. While I handpicked the team for the infiltration, it would be a small group, just enough to slip past their defenses and reach the core. I selected the best soldiers we had, men and women who had survived the worst battles of the war and come out stronger for it. By nightfall, everything was ready. We stood on the tarmac, our cloaked ship looming before us like a shadow in the dim light. The air was thick with tension, but there was no turning back now. Everyone ready? I asked, my voice cutting through the silence. The team nodded, their faces set with grim determination. Let's move, I ordered, and we boarded the ship. The flight to the alien mothership was eerily quiet. Our cloaking system was active, and we slipped past their outer defenses unnoticed. As we approached the massive alien vessel, I couldn't help but marvel at its sheer size. It was a behemoth, a floating fortress of metal and energy, its surface bristling with weapons and sensors. This is it, Mira said quietly from the pilot's seat. We're coming up on the entry point. Grohl, seated beside her, checked the EMP devices one last time. Once we're inside, we'll need to move fast. The core will be heavily guarded. I nodded, my mind already racing through the plan. We stick to the plan. Get in, Plant the devices and get out. No heroics. As we neared the ship's docking bay, Mira activated the cloaked landing sequence. The ship hummed as it maneuvered silently into position, sliding into the alien vessel like a ghost. "Touchdown," Mira whispered, her voice tense. We disembarked, weapons at the ready. The interior of the alien ship was even more alien than the battlefield we'd left behind. Everything was sleek, metallic, and faintly glowing with a strange, otherworldly energy. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and the walls seemed to hum with the pulse of the ship's power core. "Stay sharp," I murmured as we moved through the corridors, our footsteps silent on the polished floor. We're deep in enemy territory now. We navigated the labyrinthine halls of the mothership, relying on Mira's scans and Grohl's knowledge of alien tech to guide us. It wasn't long before we encountered our first patrol, a group of 3 heavily armed aliens. They were tall and spindly, their armor sleek and reflective, their weapons crackling with energy. I signaled for the team to hold. We couldn't risk an all-out firefight, not here. I motioned to Grohl, who held up one of the EMP grenades. He lobbed it silently toward the aliens, and as it landed, a pulse of energy rippled out, disabling their weapons and sending them into disarray. "Move," I ordered, and we quickly dispatched the disoriented aliens with precise shots. The deeper we ventured, the more resistance we encountered. Alien patrols grew more frequent, and it became clear that they were aware something was wrong, even if they hadn't pinpointed us yet. The tension was suffocating, every step bringing us closer to discovery. Finally, we reached the core chamber. The massive, pulsating structure dominated the room, its energy flowing through conduits that snaked through the walls like veins. Alien guards surrounded it, their eyes glowing with an eerie light. "This is it," I whispered. "We take out the core, and the fleet goes with it." We moved quickly, planting the EMP devices at strategic points around the core. The alien guards were on high alert now, and it was only a matter of time before they spotted us. "Plant the last charge," I hissed to Grohl as we ducked behind cover, the guards' movements becoming more erratic. Grohl nodded, moving to place the final device. But just as he reached the core, the alarm blared. "They've spotted us," Mira shouted, raising her weapon. "Finish it," I ordered, opening fire on the guards. The room erupted into chaos as we fought to defend our position. Alien weapons fired from all directions, and the air crackled with energy blasts. But Grohl moved with speed and precision, planting the last charge just as an alien soldier lunged at him. He barely dodged the attack, rolling to the side and firing back. The alien dropped, but more were closing in. "We need to go, now," I shouted, covering Grohl as he retreated. Mira triggered the countdown on the EMP devices, and the core began to pulse erratically, its energy fluctuating wildly. "Move, move," I yelled as we raced back toward the docking bay, the ship's alarms blaring all around us. We reached the ship just as the first explosions rocked the mothership. The EMP devices had triggered a chain reaction, and the core was collapsing in on itself, sending shockwaves through the alien vessel. "Go, Mira, get us out of here," I shouted as we boarded the ship. Mira didn't need to be told twice. She hit the thrusters, and we shot out of the docking bay just as the mothership imploded behind us. We watched in awe as the alien fleet above the planet flickered and dimmed, their power cut off by the destruction of the core. One by one, their ships began to drift, powerless and vulnerable. "We did it," I breathed, hardly able to believe it. The alien fleet was crippled. For the first time in years, the tide of the war had turned in humanity's favor.